Yeah, greetings. Peace and greetings. Let's jump right into this. Distractions be coming in. Wow, my boy, when you're trying to focus on creating something. But anywho, you see the backdrop. As of right now, it's a privilege. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Joseph Campbell. And as you can see, I already got my stuff pulled up right here. Slow burn. Intentional seeds. Emotional security creates. Let me see. Emotional security creates longevity. No doubt. In structure, foundation. It's funny how G-Ma despised Ma for material stability. Yo. Let's give honor to source. Let's give honor to the Creator, the Most High, for making all this possible, because there's a lot of stuff I'm going to cover and relatable to what I'm going to speak about. Let's give honor to the ancestors known and unknown, for the highest good of all, for, starting where they could. So yeah, jumping right into this, I did get this book in to the day before. It's in this recovery. The beauty of this book is that, if you've been following me, the masterpiece, when you get this book, you can see the whole masterpiece. So I edited that and created it just like that. So that's what I love about this book. Also, this one came out even more amazing. I be so amazed at myself simply because of self-publishing a book and also creating the art around it, which is like pioneering something for the first time. This one is gray, but I did a masterpiece to where it blends in so well here. The gray blends in. Again, this is on the laptop, so y'all bear with me, the clarity of it. The title I love about this is Please Do Not Disturb. And the beauty I love about the size of the book is that, again, just what's so amazing about this is, shout out to this sister that was in the shelter. And I'm grateful for the experience of connecting with her, because of, at a time when the phone that I had broke, I'm grateful for the connection, because I had to pretty much go connect with her and be like, hey, can you take the picture of this specific masterpiece? Because at the bottom you can actually tell where the canvas is, cuts off. I was like, can you take this picture? It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to be clear, and send it to my email. And the beauty of things is that you just never know who's aligned on your path. Like I said, this blends so well. When you get a copy of it, it looks like a sticker, but that is a picture. And what I love about this is that's a handle, like when you walk into a hotel and you know the thing that hangs. My daughter, when she reads, she thought she could peel it because she thought it was a sticker. But yeah, as you notice, the title, it's not up here, but it's right there. It said, Please Do Not Disturb. And the reason I'm sharing this is because, oh my God, I need some tissue. Y'all might have to bear with me, because I might have to run out and get some tissue, because when you're all seeing this, it's as authentic as possible. But I have to get some tissue, because my nose is I'm purging a lot of stuff right now. Be right back. nose. Blow my nose. Okay, we good. So, yeah. So the purpose of the slow burn, coming back into this, the slow burn, it has a lot to do with slow burn is like an incense. In order for you to get the whole and feel the intentions behind, just not the incense, because you notice how I have intentional seeds. I was getting so much clarity the day before, like how I've spoken about how the baby boomers or people after them, a lot of them prioritize material security. That's not an issue of material security. Material security can be a priority in someone's life. It can be different in another person's life who considers himself as a nomad. Material security is still vital. I'm not disregarding that. I had to get to this place where I realized how important material security was, not only just for myself, but my journey is much different relating to the slow burn of that, like an incense or intentional seeds, has a lot to do with the emotional security that myself, or we as in a lot of millenniums, are restoring that emotional security. And I'm going to dive a little bit deeper simply because the reason I stated how emotional security creates longevity is because you're talking about the fact of me relating my experience and my journey through child development from the very people who did not prioritize emotional stability, who attacked the individuality of a person who lived in their truth, such as myself, and many of you can relate to that. We see that globally displayed for people who come up and speak from their free will or their truth, or what they call the First Amendment, whatever amendment it is. Again, just the fact that from people speaking from their essence to bring forth balance, to restore a truth within their lineage, to bring forth secure emotional balance within and external. So again, the reason why I'm diving deeper into that is because a slow burn is like those who are very much aware of an incense. Like an incense is those who create it is very intentional when you set the intention of an incense. And though it slow burns for the aroma and also to set the intention and tone in the atmosphere or the climate around wherever you are. And it's so interesting I mentioned that because I grew up on things like that. When you wanted, when your mom cleaned or wanted to cleanse a place, naturally her ritual will be like Clorox or using chemicals or certain things to clean around the house. And most likely she would light an incense first. And naturally we don't even realize like this is not only ancestral, but this is something that has always been. And the slow burn reminded me of the fact of how our life unfolds. Every flower doesn't reveal itself in the season of in the season of blooming. It doesn't. All flowers don't reveal themselves at the same moment. Some flowers reveal themselves, their petals, in the beginning of the season. Some flowers actually blossom later on. The beauty of it all is that they all still go through a process of what's the word, before you get to unveiling itself, before before the flower actually unveils itself. It is I'm trying to look for the word. Basically it's just like what's the word I can use? Basically it just goes in its own time. So it isn't, it shelters, I guess, or it just closed off in a way. Not really closed off, but in its own time it unveils itself or reveals its petals in its own timing. And so imagine us having a knowingness around this rather than it being what and how we should be. I relate that to the blossoming of a flower or the unveiling of a flower, where in this garden of life, why is there so much pressure and control around who we should be in our childhood, how we should be in our adulthood, and so forth. And this is where the intentional seed comes from, even at the age now where I realize, like, everything, no matter if it's done in a certain way, is intentional. And these are seeds. And so now the seeds that I planted, when you're talking about the masterpiece, that this is a masterpiece that I've done, a year or two ago. But now I realized, I was like, hold on. In order for me to make this book, or, recovery in itself, which I'll go dive into detail and read more about, has a lot to do with the fact of, instead of discarding all of my masterpieces, as far as like I gave this masterpiece away, but it was beauty in taking a picture, and then now I can expand that artistry or that creation on something else, which is the writings and so forth. So that is another way why I said the intentional seeds, to where it doesn't just have to be my art displayed in a museum or shared to someone or in their home. No, this can also be something where whoever has the art, now I don't even know if I donated or what, it like even more amazement to the fact that they can also read about the symbolism in even how this masterpiece is on the book, but now can read about the artist. So that right there in itself is even more of how limitless and intentional, how what we do, plant the seeds, can even grow even much larger in the prosperity aspect or abundant aspect, not limiting ourselves and so forth. Same with this one. I created this masterpiece, this art masterpiece, in the shelter. And with that, again, this was a different perspective. All these different books, again, some will probably say, oh, you should write it all and put it all in one. No, that's the thing about pioneering. It's the intention behind what I was going through in that moment, what I was told to do, and so forth. And again, I could not put every art masterpiece if I put it on one book, I would have probably had to put the art masterpieces in the book. But that's maybe something I would consider long down the line. But other than that, no, it's very symbolic to expand and be very intentional, to where I can see all of these books and see exactly how I can connect and relate to that moment in my life, because through that process I can appreciate it and be grateful. So now, the reason why this is so important, the book aspect, has a lot to do with what I also mentioned on here, which is having no doubt in the structure that you're building, because the intention behind the slow process of which I had to really accept more of, is the slow process of like that of planting the seeds or planting a garden, and uprooting those being removed from your experience and your journey, and represent that as a garden. Removing that which is rotting, removing that which isn't reciprocating or pouring into your life, or tending to the garden of your life, your mind, your emotion, your mental, your physical well-being. Your life is like that of a garden. And if you could, and with that, it's again paying attention who waters their garden, who nurtures the company people keep, and the company, the people that they're with. I come across battle rap, and one of those things that this guy said, and it's funny, he's from the South. Shout out to Swamp, that's his name. But hey, I give gratitude to certain things I get for clarity, because I have an appreciation for certain messages and certain things, but when it's geared towards devaluing, dehumanizing in a way to keep people from progressing mentally, emotionally, especially youth, that's why I differ. That's why I be like, nah. But one thing that he mentioned in a short that I came across, he was like, you got to be careful of. He said you got to be careful of the company you keep, and also the company they keep. It was something like that. I was like, whoa. But that's very important, because why I'm saying this is related to even the family dynamic. What I mentioned on here is having no doubt in your foundation, even when you have to start all the way over, even when you have to rebuild from the ground up. That's why they say from the ground up. You have to check your fucking soil. Your soil represents who you are, your internal world. Your soil represents, your seed is the essence of who you are, your soul. You have to represent, like, self-care, self-love. It's like that. You're tending to, if you was a representation of a tree or a plant, you have to tend to your soil. You have to tend to the roots. You have to make sure that certain parts of those who are gardeners, those who till land and stuff like that, you have to make sure that that soil is actually can actually grow whatever you're doing. You have to make sure that the foundation in itself is sturdy, it's solid, it's there's nutrients in it, a lot of things, and with that comes with adaptation, like, you know, the being able to adapt in that environment and so forth. Everyone's not willing to do that. So a lot of us have been in places where, again, when you look at the family structure and dynamic that you come from or come out of, it has a lot to do with, a lot of people aren't tending to their soil. They're attending to their own needs first. So with that, it reflects their representation of who they are. If y'all catch me looking, I'm always looking at the camera instead of, the circle over here instead of like the camera right here. But anywho, I catch myself doing that. But again, when we're not watered and we're coming from generations where our mothers did not have the opportunity, we're starting where they couldn't. That's why I realized, like, what dawned on me is the fact of, it hit me the other day and I was like, wow, I see why my grandmother despised, in a way, my mom. I have to blow my nose. I can just hear it. Like, it's real out here. I see why my mom, my grandmother, despised my mom in a way, but on a deeper level, I realized what I was also generationally breaking or changing the cycle for. My grandmother always has this, like, had this, and I'm especially on a spiritual and physical level, because the clarity in this, in the revelation I got was like, whoa. I see why I was treated a certain way, and I also see why she was treated. My mother was treated a certain way, even through her trying to learn how to balance her life, find a sense of identity. Because a lot of people who go through substance abuse, they actually try to escape and develop an identity through that substance, through that, you know, drugs, or through whatever it is, whatever vices that they're fighting against. And so it's not to say my grandmother did not have love for her children. It was when I noticed, when I got clarity the day before, I was like, whoa, that's what it is. When you have generations of baby boomers who prioritize the material security over a lot of things, because for a lot of them, obtaining that in such a time where there was so much racism or hatred, or just so much in the world, to where keeping things stable as a darker woman, or just as women, was very challenging and difficult. And I realized, like, my grandmother had to have the stability, even when my mother ran the streets, or even when my aunt did what she did. You know, whatever they done during that time of, like, the crack epidemic, because I was born in '89, so a lot of those opportunities where my mom did not show up or do certain things, I realized, like, my grandmother had to have her material security. So this is not making anyone seem like they're better and bigger or have much more. I realized in the climate of my family dynamic how it was used to fill a gap of people feeling like they were superior just because they had more material substances or material possessions. And you see that play out today, where a lot of people they downplay people's entrepreneurship, or they downplay people's struggle, or way of trying to navigate and find stability in their own way, and they're automatically dispositioned or considered a black sheep or outcast. And I noticed that was the thing with my mom, and in reality, she just wanted to feel seen in a more emotional place. And I noticed that the pattern of how she would do certain things, and it almost like her pattern would lead her right back to the very thing that she was seeking, which is like a love from her mom, my grandmother. And a lot of that really showed me the fact of how my aunt had material security. But what most people don't realize, in these homes where you, again, prioritizing material security, there was no sense of, it was so much around control, abuse, narcissism. I would hear how she would talk to her kids. I would hear how she would just, it was so much built up and pent up emotion, repressed and suppressing for so long. And, okay, I don't want that number to show. I trust that didn't show on there. But, yeah, so I noticed that even in those home environments, there was still a lot of abuse. There was no, those floor plans were still, even though they had material security, I hope y'all catching this, even though they had material security, there was still no emotional stability in the homes. So no matter how long people have obtained material security, there will come a time where everything in the dark will be brought to light, meaning that there will be some type of friction, underlying friction, or some type of unresolved trauma and emotion, which I would see a lot of enmeshment happen in the homes where my aunt or other relatives, where some women who represented like the aspect of the hierarchy in the family, they fueled or enabled the narcissism or the control and the manipulation, even through their partnerships with the men. And this is where I realized that my confidence and courage, it took me to step out and step more into myself and create from my own essence or my own self-expression, my own individualism, my own truth. And the reason why this is so vital is because I'm doing that. And with that, I realize that a part of me is choosing to recover from the very floor plans or foundation that represented a distorted mother and father, or the wounded masculine displayed in men and women from my grandmother, mother, or people in that dynamic, to use that, transmute this, as I will read in a few, transmute it and alchemize it into something bigger, something much more bigger, to be able, because shout out to Kendrick, because I'm telling the clarity. I'm something in the song here is like, we gonna see the future first. And people don't realize a lot of these people that are blocked emotionally, mentally, have so much blocked within themselves. They don't have a focus on the bigger picture, which some may use the term the future, or have a focus on seeing beyond their current circumstances. It's not to say that they have anxiety because of the fact that they can't. Well, yes, they can have anxiety around the future, or what the focus on the worst possible outcome because of them not being so present in the body emotionally. And this is what, again, a lot of their fears of the future can be rooted in their foundations, which again is not coming from a holistic place. This is what a lot of us are doing. We're recovering through the transmutation of what we went through with pain, or what we went through in the darkness or childhood development. We're recovering that which was almost lost, or we're restoring that which was at a point in time our foundations crumble underneath us, because it was not going to be substantial through, no matter how much people, I'm telling you right now, no matter how much people want to project and portray to the world that everything is all good. The transition right now is going to highlight so much of what no one can hide anymore. And that's the shadow work, meaning that's the shadow self, that's the parts of self that people are afraid to see, the individual aspect, the versions of them that they have repressed for so long, the resentment that my grandmother has because she felt like she did not live out her life. And so now it's almost like she's trying to recover that and finally live, but it's almost like you have a daughter who never gets it together. And this is why I feel like the resentment, the underlying rage of what she didn't get to do because my mother did not want to take her responsibility of raising her kids young, or, due to whatever vices she had. And then even with my aunt, she did the same thing. Had to raise both of her kids, and it's like you're dealing with women who never had a break, who never had the opportunity to actually plant their seeds, and even when they tried to, it was frowned upon, or it was they never had an opportunity to sit with their emotions. You're talking about a grandmother. I'm telling you, I'm grateful. I'm not at all devaluing the security that she had to be there. I'm grateful that she was there. I would not be here today. Everyone played a role. My mother's inability to see herself and be responsible at that young age, I would not even be speaking about the importance of emotional security had I not experienced emotional abandonment or physical abandonment. You will not see me right here present day talking about these very things, about a mother wound and a father wound. So with that, again, I was able to recognize why she felt like through the codependency and the enmeshment that they built over time, the closeness with no fucking boundaries. Y'all not hearing me? When you're talking about, is it enmeshment? I believe it is, yeah, enmeshment relationships where there is no sense of boundaries or no sense of identity, and people are so close emotionally to where they're so codependent or attached to the idea of what people are doing that they don't have a focus on self and able to identify with who it is they are and how to evolve from that. So this is what we're dealing with on a deeper ancestral level with people individually. That's why I said this is different parts of me as I evolve. You know what I'm saying? The picture, I know exactly where that takes me and what I went through, what I was going through. Now, the book in itself is a whole nother aspect of transitioning in the shelter. This one also was created in the shelter, but it was more present of being in the shelter and experiencing more of a whole different aspect of my life. Now, with that, there are different parts, but they're also representation of the whole. So everybody in your life is a representation of the whole, the oneness. So for me, I realized why when I see, again, going back to how my aunt displayed her materialism, it was so much in your face. Let me show you. And I know a lot of us can relate to this. It's like she wanted to act like she was more superior than my mother, or show to the world, parade. And again, I'm using this as an example because I know people who do this too. They want to show and to the world that, hey, I have it all together. There's nothing wrong with me, or there's nothing inwardly that's going on. And that right there is another mask. I've seen this so much in certain demographics where people go to positions and they hate them. They don't love what they do, but that's all they know. So they develop an identity, or a false identity, a false sense of empowerment around it. But in reality, they still never had the opportunity to actually live out they're still living out what ancestors or people before them did, which is, again, a learned behavior pattern of never truly stepping out and building outside of the family structure or outside of the community, outside of what's familiar. So even going through, let's say, like I said, I grew up with people, and again, to each their own, because people build from certain places. But I'm talking about small towns where you have certain chicken plants, or when you have certain small positions where that's all people know. Economically, and the certain demographics, this is all they have. And to them, in their mind, that's all they have. And that's why it's so important, why I say, you see here, it's a privilege of a lifetime in being who you are. Because there's no limitless, there's no limitations when you are. Well, you're limitless, and there's no limitations when you are realizing that there's so much I can learn, so much I can, gain, even through I thought I knew something, but now it's even more excited to know something else or gain this knowledge and awareness. And so with that, again, I used to sit back and wonder, what was this? It's almost like envy or jealousy. This was my perspective. A lot of people in my family may not agree, but I always felt like there was this jealousy against, like, or have this evil eye towards my mother, you know, from her sister or even from her relatives towards my family, because even with that, it was like we had a mother, and I know a lot of people can relate. She did drugs, yes, but somehow she always had favor to something that happened to her or something, you know, she always make it out of something. She just had favor, and a lot of people don't realize, I don't care if people on the street or whatever they're doing. There are people with anointings. There are people with that their ancestors of the highest good or spirit guides are protecting them. There are people on the street. They have an anointing. They have to talk, and people have to see them. And people are like, they are karma for people. They are supposed to be seen and supposed to be treated a certain way as well. They still have value. And so I used to sit back and be like, what is it to, I feel like my grandmother despised my mom, and my aunt as well would throw it in my mother's face in a way to where she felt like she had it all together. My aunt did, because she had material security. But when you would go in the house, there was so much chaos. There was so much verbal and physical abuse. And that's why I realized like the emotional stability was never there. And also my mom, like, again, with my grandmother, it's like she will always emphasize, like, get your shit together, do this, you need to, you know, you too old to be doing this. But in reality, I feel like my mom was just a woman at her age who never received a healthy love from her mother. She never was embraced. I honestly can't even count on my hands and say how much my grandma said she loved her. Or, you know, because of the fact that people are so, I feel like there's a hidden agenda around the disappointment because, or like shame and guilt around having a daughter who went that route. But that doesn't make a mother or anyone less valuable than anybody else who at a time you had elders who also was a part of that so-called drugs or did certain things. But you know, a lot of them get into their Christian beliefs, and all of a sudden they have this hierarchy or this self-righteous or God complex around the fact of they're much better, or just because they have material security that they're much more valuable than a certain family members. I seen this shit a lot. And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, I'm actually living out karmically as a patriarchal, a man, much more differently, because I felt like certain people judged and despised, you know, or breadcrumb you because they're talking about the slow burn or the seed actually prospering a little bit later, or a late bloomer. Some people, I'm telling y'all, like, what if like the Most High gave you those gifts to go through those very things? This is what I had to accept, to go through those very things just for you to obtain things more intentionally, so that you don't, it's not that you, it's so that rejection from the family or whomever it is was protecting your seeds and your fruits of your labor and what you created, to protect it from them, so that it doesn't be destroyed, because you're going to actually witness their self-destruction. You're going to actually witness it. And it's not wishing nothing on them. You can just see from the intentions of their seeds and how it literally rottens from the inside out, everything around it. It literally is going to have an effect on everyone. Their foundations are it's collapsing simply because what it's built on. And I've told y'all about the narcissistic templates, the control, the manipulation, and so forth. There's going to come a matter of time for somebody to rebel, something violently happen, someone you know, there's numerous of things where, as we elevate and evolve, this is what it is to be a cycle breaker, a curse breaker, a generational curse breaker, where I realized, I was like, wow, I'm supposed to be building something intentionally for the long haul, for longevity, even though it may be slow, even though it's authentic, it's with integrity. I don't have to feel shame and guilt as they would want me to, just because I'm not doing what they feel I should do, the family should do. Stay in the hometown, be abused, be manipulated, be breadcrumb, instead of build individually and walk in your own truth. That's what they despise. And that's why I realized, even with my mom, even though she may have had her vices, she was still a rebel with a cause. She talked her shit, she was sensitive, but guess what? She had a heart for loving herself, and she had a heart for loving other people, but I had to remind her, Mom, like, you need to be loving on yourself more. But some people never got that. Her father never told her that. Her mother never told her that. And then when you don't have it, the demonstration or the actions from very young in the childhood development, you're seeing adults live out this in a way to where they're trying to get it together. It's just like no different with us. I told you, I've been judged. I've been having a lot of people who are like, oh God, why you don't have, well, you doing all this, why you don't? But they don't see the process of the fact that you don't plant the seeds and receive the harvest in the same season. But that doesn't mean you don't stay consistent and persistent. I just had to realize, like the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been 4 years into YouTube. And it's funny because at times where I wanted to doubt and quit, I know what's coming from this, and no one else can deter me from that, because I know how much it means to not only just myself, but the ripple effect it will have on millions and billions and generations after. So with that, don't ever, again, me getting this clarity of why it is people do what they do, and it's simply because, some of you are going to be the guiding light for that specific relative or people or somebody, but it's also the importance of the boundaries that you had to create to protect not only yourself, but your family, your current family that you created, or your lineage. Because a lot of people are due to their inability to connect more deeper, they're more poison to what you're creating, or their liability. And it's a way you have to handle or deal with certain people so that they don't try to destroy your empire. And the only reason why this is so vital is because you cannot destroy an empire from the outside in. So even if they could, it's more so your responsibility to protect, which is vital, which is your well-being first, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth. Because that's what I realized. I recognized the toxicity in the deeper root cause of what was causing certain behaviors and what was triggering people, gaslighting and so forth, and keep people at that place of it's almost like feeding off the same foundation, where again, when I realized when I was removed, I was able to see clearly. Then with that awareness, now I'm able to build longevity with that, with myself and with my kids, my partner, and other people, to remind them, listen, this starts with you. And it's a slow process. Their process is more instant grits. Their process is more instant gratification. I'm telling you some deep shit to where I don't even know why my mom used to call me son, I got a job. I'm like, why she do that? I used to ask my grandma, hey TJ, she was like, that's my nickname. She was like, I did this, and I'm like, but why are you telling me? And you know what? And for me, what dawned on me, I was like, yo, maybe it's the fact of they're looking for that reassurance that they never got from their father. And some of us hold an energy of a father and mother to where they're just simply, you're that healthy and holistic outlet for them, even if they're unconsciously knowing what they're doing. It's like they want to show you, hey, I accomplished this, I did this, can you see me? And this is where a lot of our kids, or even adults right now, a lot of their getting their status and degrees or whatever it is, they don't even realize unconsciously they're doing it from a place of not self-acceptance, but the acceptance of others, the approval of other people's. And so with that now, they're not realizing how we haven't grew up due to the fact of how people have prioritized material security. This has led us to believe that we have to have to gain that security, we have to have the approval. You got to get approved for this job, or you got to get accepted into this school. You got to, these are foundations that were created. But not knowing the spiritual vices or the warfare that you have to go through while you're in there, that's what a lot of us weren't prepared for. I come from a lot of women that they're very powerful, they're warriors. At the same time, they didn't know not how to put down their masculinity. So they displayed it from a wounded place and projected it onto everyone around them. And I'm grateful, not just the fact that I don't want to use the word escape, that I made it out. I made it out in a way so that I can be able to see clearer the wounds that they don't see within themselves. So now my approach still has to be healthy with firm boundaries on how I will not be disrespected, how I not will be treated a certain way, how my accomplishments, not only within myself, but that will show outwardly because I've done the inner work, will not be downplayed. I don't have to deal or interact with whomever I don't want to protect my peace. And that's the beauty of it. I realized a lot of them didn't have boundaries to be able to protect their peace. Had my mom know this, and people had the opportunity to get away, a lot of them will have the money. You know how people have relatives, they will have the money, they will get all these things, but they never knew how to leave. They never had they had opportunities, but they never stepped away or stayed away. And so with that, now you see that because of what was familiar, they stayed in what was the enmeshment, the emotional incest, the protecting the wounds rather than nurturing the wounds, protecting the predators and things that, again, now as we remove ourselves, new leadership is being raised within the dynamics. I don't realize, like, a lot of these dynamics where a lot of you have to be removed and replaced, it's because you were also at a point in time where we were a part of those very things, enabling it, fueling it, supporting it, until we realized, like, this shit is gonna burn me out, or I got to a place where I could not take on this no more. I couldn't be around the drama anymore. I couldn't be around the fact of how you talked about my mother behind her back, but never to her face. Or when you did, you disrespected her. You made her feel little. Stuff like that, where you see how a parent would talk to their children. It was disgusting. And people think, like, this is something that, let me check my messages. This is something that people, like, look at like it's something to be proud of, like to see people go through traumatic experiences like that and think like, oh my gosh, this is all we have, so we just go keep laughing and think like this is cool. No, it's not cool. It's not cool. And so, yeah, let me see, do I need to respond to this right now? So yeah, and so for me, that's the thing that like I said, that's just my perspective from how, like, I felt like it was being highlighted on how I feel like my grandmother and them, they carry the same energy towards me, but I was the one that had to stand up and speak up. I wasn't taking nobody's shit, and that's when I became the problem. But then I realized, like, you find a solution by living out your purpose. You find the solution. You become the solution once you realize, like, let me take all this and live my truth. And with that, you realize that rejection from those people or whomever is your protection from the fact of staying in something where you know that it doesn't bring you joy. Not that it brings you, but there's no joy in it. There's no happiness in it. Mistreating or, devaluing people, dehumanizing just because they don't have a certain position or material substances or certain shit. And for me, that was a recovery process of how the emotional aspect can show you and connect you to the fact of this is intergenerational. This is a learned behavior pattern. why aren't you trying to nurture your daughter no matter what age she is? Or can't you see this, my mother, like, can't you see this as a little girl that's still trying to find where home is, and all these patterns, these relationships she looping in or whatever leads her right back to, you. So this is the thing where I realized that the in denial or the lack of accountability my grandmother had, that was still going to continue. And that's what you see play out in so many not just demographics, but family structures, where they are not aware that where they don't have accountability, when you have these generations, they automatically dismiss them, push it aside, still open their door, but at the same time, there's still no accountability. There's still no sit downs about how this hurt this person, how this hurt this person. Basically, there's so much unprocessed events that have happened where people were hurt, people were damaged, and they've carried it, and they keep carrying it for so long, and they keep repressing it, they keep suppressing it through in their careers and their work. And that's what you see a lot of elders burning themselves out, repressing, suppressing so much, doing so much, and just thinking like, oh, everything's okay. You're not all right, and you're not okay. And it's in the mental illness, even around the fact of, again, like how my aunt would just perceive that she much more better, and I never could. Well, I got it now, which my perspective, I feel like it was more of a spiritual thing, where she felt like she knew that. I almost felt like my aunt knew the anointing that I had, or the calling on my life. Like I said, everyone has a calling. It's even if you accept it. There were things that I ain't gonna go too much in detail, but there's just things I knew about family, hear about them. In the South, you would hear about like certain things, like people going to practitioners or going to certain things and psychics, or spiritual things, and then you'll hear about people like root work, what they call it. These things are ancient. These things have always been there. It was just people who I realized like knew more than I knew spiritually at the time, but it was so much of what they did and how they used things to try to manipulate someone's path or journey, or try to pretty much cause so much chaos. And a lot of us can relate to the fact of, like, we have relatives or certain people who they see you, they look at you, but they look at you with envy, they look at you with jealousy, and they're so distracted by what they feel like is in you that they're so blinded and blocked by what's within them. That's what this is about. It's like we have to realize, like, the light, we have this within ourselves. It's that when you're choosing to be a cycle breaker, it will be revealed to you who is the enemy of self, which is the enemy of you, or who chooses to breadcrumb you or feel like you don't deserve this and deserve that. That was so much revealed to me. I can go on and on, but I'm gonna keep it like structure right now. But other than that, yeah, with that, it's a lot of things that were revealed to me in dreams and stuff. People who can see things in dreams, and yeah. On a deeper level, I just know that people were trying to tamper into doing, like, in the arts, or like the dark arts and magic, or using, basically manipulating their energy. Some people will call it witchcraft, or call it juju, or voodoo, or hoodoo. A lot of things that a lot of people don't realize, like a lot of those southern states, a lot of that stuff is where a lot of people were ushered in from other cultures and creeds, and your Gullah Geechee people, your other people from certain tribes, and you have these rituals, or that people have conjoined or connected from other tribes, or come here and connected with people on this land and so forth. Like, people did things to try to manipulate someone's path or destiny, or try to deter them from evolving their lineage, or rising above the occasion and so forth. So when you hear me speak about, I said before, ancestry, everyone wasn't of the highest good. There are people before us that wanted to resist, to stay in the dark, to keep your lineage, or in a place of stagnation. They grew up off fear. They feared. Some of them supported the very people to keep the fear. Did that make sense now? People who wanted to keep people captive. So this is what breaks the whole generational narrative and cycle of colorism, or even not colorism, but different shades of people. There were people of all shades who supported and manipulated their power, whether spiritually into the physical plane, through their spiritual gifts or natural gifts. Yes. So with that, it's no difference than you seeing people in your lineage right now or present day who have tried and attempted to what? Keep you from rising above or rising higher into your purpose and living out your truth. That is no different. That's people abusing their power. When I sit here and told my partner this, I said, imagine you sharing your gifts. Like, for instance, I just felt like this is my perspective from my own experience. The grandmother my grandmother, for instance, like, this is where I got from. I created something one day, this jacket. And I'm talking about, I created this jacket, right? And my nephew was like, yo, that's fire. My other cousin was like, yo, that's fire. And at that moment, I was staying with her, trying to rebuild my life. So, trying to rebuild my life, right? And I was rebuilding my life, and we had agreed on, hey, you do this until you get a code. One day I came out and I had my nephew put on a jacket, and I remember her face so clearly, to where she never saw my art, like, to the depths of that. And then you gotta realize a lot of people see what you create, and they're even more like in awe of the fact of how did you do it so quickly, or the duration, and this could have took them months. And some of the people in the family that I came through, or from, they had no idea that I was an artist as the way I did, or just stay consistent. Again, a lot of us grew up in places where there were times I went through, what was it called? What is that syndrome called? It was something where it's like you're taught to play so small and dim your light, and you're taught to, you have doubt around, success or something. I forgot what it's called. And with that, again, my grandmother saw this. And again, there was this hierarchy with, let's say, certain relatives that we knew. A lot of people knew that there was favoritism because certain relatives had, at that time, more material security or made more money. And my thing, I told my partner at the time, I was like, it's funny how people will strip and remove the foundation from a gift that could liberate us all financially, give us all financial abundance. And it's like you'll be able to see the very people who all of a sudden, due to your living in your truth and authenticity, they automatically, it makes them very uncomfortable, or they become very, since it's not in the norm of fueling the control and narcissism and the dysfunctional family structure, you're immediately attacked, you're immediately outcast, and that's what ended up happening. Like, my grandmother at that time would get mad because I would be in the room creating, and I would be creating something that would bring, enough money for me to sit back and just relax for a couple cycles, months, if even. And again, another relative, had this. I'm be honest, my sister, my younger sister would have this I don't know what type of connection that they had to where it's like they had to feel like they had one up on people because they felt like since she was the, what do they call it, the money maker, or the had this, that she automatically had an advantage, or she could treat people a certain way. And I peeped game on this very young, and that's why I realized a lot of people try to breadcrumb or didn't want to support, because I just always felt deep within me that there was some type of envy or jealousy, even connected to the fact of how they felt my mother protected me more, which I recognize as smothering, or the enmeshment relationship dynamic that, again, all of us were connected to before I actually told myself I have to get away and stay away. No matter what happens, I have to stay consistent and persistent on my vision and my purpose and so forth. When I'm ready to connect with these people, if ever again, I'll do that in my timing, in divine timing. But I recognize this a lot to where there was never no support towards what I was creating. So I was called to be able to use my natural gifts and creativity to create that abundance, because that's what it was coming from, a holistic place. So that's why it started to make very clear where I had to cut off the whole matriarchal aspect of the distorted mother, because all of them carry that energy. All of them carry that energy of the fact of how not really walking into their own identity or their truth. So certain things that will come up, there's always talk around who's doing what, drama, or this person not doing this. Never really nothing coming from a healthy place. And that's the reason why, again, removing myself just from that energy and climate, because it was just energetically draining. So what I end up having to do is, again, that whole dynamic where I realized it had a lot to do with my grandmother. And during that time, it was a lot of stuff coming up around somebody in the family that was doing something to another child or something, and I had to speak up, and I'm like, what are we protecting here? So I was already getting ready to pack, and I can see all this anger coming up around the fact of me speaking my truth. So as much as we tell ourselves, you want to hold on to things, no, that was the best decision I could have ever done. That's when I had to, again, start living out my own journey again, stepping away, creating, trying to sustain, stay stable through whatever it is. And through this process, I was learning more and more about myself. I was learning more and more about the family structure, what I had to rebuild and what I had to connect and what I had to heal within myself. And so through that, I start to realize wow, this is much deeper than me trying to stay in something that I realize that isn't worrying me, isn't supporting me in any way, not even my vision, my dream, and so forth. That was very painful at the time, because these are people who say they love you, they care about you, and so forth, but they never want, what's that saying goes, people want to see you do good but never better than them. And so for me, I realized my doing better had a lot to do with me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and I had to cleanse myself of the very things. And it was different levels, because I had to go through this with my mom, I had to go through this with my grandmother, and then I had to realize oh my gosh, my sisters reflect the same energy, because they have never did any shadow work or faced themselves or really been honest, because they would protect the very false perception of the mother, by still living out this woundedness or wounded masculinity through their actions, whether it be verbal abuse, physical abuse, and so forth. And I'm yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, because it was just things where I had to realize I cannot be a part of this. And so with that, when I recognized that moment, I realized she had I think there was communication around just the fact of me creating my art and being there all day bothered her. And that's the thing about, again, where people didn't have the opportunity, that brings up some type of repressed memory or where they did not have the opportunity to do this. So when they didn't feel like that way, you're not going to have the opportunity. So that's where the rug or certain things are removed. And I've dealt with this consistently from people who, in relationships as well, who did not see the vision, who did not want to support it, and so forth. So for me, this book about recovery has a lot to do with the fact of me speaking on those very things, or diving deeper in a one-on-one setting with speaking to my mom and grandmother, the conversations I never could have with them, which I'm okay with. I had to learn to be my own best friend. I had to learn to dive deeper into myself, because these are generations previously that are emotionally unavailable. They're still trying to work through, they're still trying to convince themselves to work through the suppressed and repressed emotion, instead of acknowledging, sitting down to face the repressed and suppressed emotion. I feel like I'm purging as I'm talking about this. So again, it is a privilege of a lifetime to be who you are. I keep saying that as I look at it. And so again, I start to recognize the energy playing out, to where I realize why I didn't get certain support. But isn't it wild how you can have something that can change everyone's life, and the whole time you thinking that they're supposed to eat at your table, or they're supposed to sit with you, and the whole time they don't care, they don't want to, they don't want to be with you. And that's the thing about being on one accord. And again, you can't change and make people believe anything that you believe in. I feel like I got stuff on my arm. So yeah, let me finish this up. Let's see. How much do I want to read into this? This is so good. This is my first time probably reading some of this anyway. How many pages I want to read? This is y'all don't get it, man. This is let the recovery begin. Wow, this is so great. I'm gonna just start somewhere. Oh, this was deep, because I was talking about my experience in the shelter. I was recently gifted a belt by someone in the shelter. Beautiful tan brown leather. Who knew at 35 I'd be discussing traumatic experience from years of abuse. My partner asked me if I wore belts a lot growing up. It never dawned on me that I had a lot of repressed emotions connected to wearing a belt. I didn't realize how the uncomfortability of something so much smaller than me, but having so much more power at the point in time of my life. See, there is a stigma around the black community, or melanated, however you relate to it, so be it. There's a stigma around ass whooping being a form of discipline. The mental illness around it being healthy discipline. The old school way of keeping a child in line and on track in life. What's even more traumatic is how we normalize abusing our kids, allowing another belief system to dictate an innocent life. I look at the belt and I have, and I would have never assumed they bring up memories from the past. Like how repeatedly I would be hit just for not listening, not moving fast as I should, be disrespectful for speaking up, which is so-called talking back, as if I'm not supposed to use my voice at all as a child, teenager, or adult. Something that was given to me, announcing my hurting, something that was given to me, like the belt, announcing my hurting fucking body to the person striking me. Fuck, I'm not even sure I wanted to wear this belt now. Or is it me psyching myself out due to the subconscious fear? I noticed a trend in the darker shaded demographics, this popular trend. I call it laugh at my pain. Let me give you a prime example. As I'm mentioning the belt being such a traumatizing thing for me in my upbringing, we have this thing where we laugh so uncomfortably at the very thing that fucked up our nervous systems, all the way into now having to deal with those unresolved issues lying dormant beneath our tissue. Personally, I can vouch for so many millions, possibly hundreds of millions, generationally speaking, who have tried their best to navigate through childhood events never truly being processed, which most of our lives shows up unexpectedly in encounters with others daily. The infamous flight or fight celebrity who holds the crown within the deepest trenches and holds the root causes of mental disorder, uncontrollable reactions, who holds the records of murders, prisons being built, suicide, the list goes on. Notice how I said the infamous flight or fight celebrity. Constantly, I'm going to read that again. The infamous flight or fight celebrity who holds the crown within the deepest trenches and holds the root causes of mental disorder, uncontrollable reactions, who holds the records of murders, prisons being built, suicide, and the list goes on, constantly reliving out repressed memories of these events, never having told the story, anyone holding space to empathize the pain and tears. We laughed at masking the sadness and shame, even guilt surrounding the embarrassing moments in the school setting from a parent, relative, etc. Popularizing our ass whoopings in class with disguised backhanded compliments, praising violent behaviors as if our bullies, whether at home or in school, have more value than our well-being. Phew. The never well-rested mama visiting the school to yell at you in front of your class and teachers and peers, only for you to repress that memory and suppress it through more years of school settings pretending everything is alright. So they force your angry ass with all these pent-up emotions into sports. Even more so after the verbal threats at home, you so patiently can't wait to experience for the next 10 to 15, maybe 20 years of your life, more unsafe events within the community. Just take it to Jesus rants. So we not only laugh at the pain, we're taught to passive-aggressively push it away through religious commentary every fucking Sunday. Now y'all getting the exclusive right here. Now this is the book, because I'm not reading it all. It's called Recovery. Watch our grandmothers pretending to love a man they never met personally, yet have the psychosis demeanor throughout most of their lives, learning from these women early who didn't have independent thinking or self-reliant or sufficient sources of anything emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and physically. Because it was a threat to speak up as a woman in an all men group setting, church, etc., gravitating towards a Jesus figure, masquerading their insecurities for the church communities, especially the egotistical behavior to praise and idolize the man of God, whom they call preacher, pastor, and bishop, laughing ridiculously in the faces of people who don't give a fuck about their well-being when they leave the building. A circus full of clowns. I get it. A lot of women with father wounds glorify these male figures because of deep-rooted issues never addressed until now. I sometimes wonder if my grandmother or women who were or are followers of Christ truly have this connection that liberates them emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, because I oddly find it challenging to accept how so many women that are of a darker shade who grew up in mostly racist or self-hate driven climates to have this external obsession with a man who doesn't look like them or their father, genetically speaking, yet they have this internal hatred for men who looks like them. Make that make sense now. I wonder if that's why so many adore the idea of a pastor and preacher, because he's the missing piece she's been seeking as a woman in her adulthood. This being connected to her childhood abandonment issues with her father or father figures, sort of like an escape from accepting the realities, feelings, and emotions around her childhood. Makes me wonder why so many men, pastors in these demographics, who have these positions, proclaiming to be ordained, elected, and have these unforeseen these unforeseen knowledge and answers only given by them. So this little girl, these little girls in a women's body who have never matured emotionally, evolved spiritually, have no records or idea of their ancestral connection, no discernment or awareness of their intuition, are simply preyed upon by these fools or wolves in sheep clothing. Talk about wolves in sheep clothing. The courage in accepting the role of the black sheep. Now let the recovery begin. Do I have to recover from more than my childhood traumas? Now look, that was 10 pages. Now let the recovery begin. That was 10 pages. How many pages is it? I think it's 30. 29, 30? Yeah. Go get that. Go get that. That was 10 pages. I gotta go. I appreciate y'all. Take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.